Welcome home, Raiders! This week, Ian Hazakostas is back in the news, but you won't be able to go flying off the handle about it. Get ready for loot changes in Hellfire and so much more. This is Convert to Raid, number 182.
You're listening to Convert to Raid, the podcast for raiders in the World of Warcraft.
Podcast Power Station in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Today is May 31st, 2015. It is now 11:15 a.m. Central Daylight Time. I gotta change my notes. Thanks for joining us from all around World of Warcraft land. And hello, my name is Pat Crane, and I am the guy that helps host the show, run the little boards and all that kind of stuff. My alternate name is Zug in the World of Warcraft, and I'll get to you about raiding. But first, we got to go to California now. Oh, boy. He's in the Bay Area, and his name is Darius.
Yay, that's me.
That is you.
I'm finally unpacked. I live here now. As you can tell behind me, you know, I've got this great view out the window.
Right,
so
of Draenor. That's amazing. That's cool. I like it.
California's right next to Draenor.
Right.
I don't know, people don't know that. But
right. No, yeah. Nobody knows that, actually, which is great. All right, let's move on to Hollywood, California, to the Funky Monk. It is Coltrane.
Classic fortune cookie say.
Ooh.
A classic.
Classic.
Here we go. A raider who cheeses the meters is not very Gouda. Yeah? Not very
bad the first time. And
Gouda.
Did I hear a snort coming from somebody? Was that from you, Colt?
I may.
My head was slightly turned. I'm not sure.
I may have laughed at my own fortune, which is pretty much what I do every day.
Right.
You know,
right.
I laugh at my own jokes.
Well, somebody's got to. It's not going to be us.
It's not very Gouda.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a classic. That's one of them classics.
That's one of them classics, everybody.
That's one of them classics.
Just because it's classic doesn't make it good, though.
Yes, it does. It's vintage. It is. It's classic.
It doesn't. No. It gets smellier with age, actually.
Yes, it does.
It's a lot
Especially
of negative bongos
Gouda
in the chat room.
No, I'm seeing. I broke the bongos because they're so amazing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, it's been a couple of weeks, fellas, and welcome back. And
not enough, apparently.
Well, it's kind of been. So I would characterize this spring as being kind of spotty for news and opinion. We have some more this week, and we'll probably have some next week, according to if you believe all the forum posts that are going on. We'll get to that in just a second. But we're back. And we're having some fun together. Darius, let's start with you. What's been going on in WoW for you?
In the world of WoWcrafts, let's see. I haven't been doing a whole lot because I'm still trying to figure out this whole commute thing, having worked from home for 8 years. So it's kind of eating into my time quite a bit because I get home and I don't want to do anything.
Sure.
But we've been raiding with Convert to Mythic, and we're still trying to fill a couple more roster spots. So we've been doing Mythic. We've been killing a couple losses here and there, but trying to fill those like last 3 or 4 has been proving difficult, as we talked about last time on the show.
Yeah.
So we're still trying to do that, but things are good. I think, like most teams, a lot of people are kind of waiting for 6-2. So
yeah. Well, and that is kind of the thing that a lot of people are talking about right now is when are we going to get 6.2?
Yeah.
So I feel you. And so the roster's coming along a little bit slowly, right?
Yeah. It's slow because there's not a whole lot of people out there right now, but it is coming together. I think this week, actually, we raid tonight. I think we might for the first time have a full 20 pugs. So
cool.
That's great.
See how it goes.
Well, good luck. And I know that, as far as like all the uproar, and I've heard from some people on Twitter, and I've read some of the YouTube posts and stuff like that. And I think that there were a lot of things from the Asparagus Initiative that were probably set up as a way to keep friends together playing. really. I mean, that's kind of what the Asparagus Initiative has always done. It's always been, hey, let's all be friends and let's be awesome players and let's go conquer content. And it got to be at a point where maybe the rules were starting to get in the way, and so I think it was probably a good thing, especially if you want to raid kind of more on a hardcore level, to split from the group and do all that stuff. So good luck to you and the new team as you forge ahead. I know that for the Asparagus Initiative it's been a little tough, and we've been doing heroics. And by we, I mean the Asparagus Initiative, because I actually haven't been raiding for the last couple of weeks.
Right.
I've been out.
That's what happens too. I mean, we are in that lull in between content patches. You know what I mean? That's kind of how it goes. And when you've got content with Mythic that is pretty difficult and all this hardcore personal responsibility, things teams kind of drop off. They kind of change, they shift. So, it's just kind of how it goes.
It's going to be really hard seeing that 6.2 doesn't even come out till September. So, it's going to be a long
September. I heard it was grind. Next summer. I heard that's when it's going to happen.
Yeah. 2018. They must have pushed it back.
No, not really. No, but it's kind of weird though, because for me, I decided to take a step back because we had been raiding Mythic, and even though we were wiping on stuff, I didn't need any gear from Heroics anymore. And I'm like going, wow, I don't want to bring up an alt. I really don't, unless I'm gonna seriously attempt to play him in 6.2. Then I can see trying to gear up an alt and all that kind of stuff. But I'm having fun with my my enhancement shaman, my male enhancement shaman. Sorry,
excellent.
And so I'm having fun just going in LFR and shooting around a little bit and then dropping whenever I want to. So for me it was like I don't really want to go into just heroics on my main. It feels a little bit like a step back. So I'll just wait until 6.2 and we'll go kill some more stuff as soon as that happens. And by the way, just as long as we're talking about it, we did have the conversation last time about Mythic players. Is casual hardcore possible? And I heard from a lot of people. They sent emails into the show. They sent us things on the tweeter, and there was one guy that disagreed with what we were saying, and he was 8 of 10 Mythic with his team going 2 days a week. And for you, I have this. Yeah! Awesome! That's awesome. It's amazing. I also took a look at his server. And his server had probably about 20 or so teams that were all running Mythic content. So probably a little bit bigger pool to pick from as far as the player base goes, which we don't have necessarily on Airy Peak. So, or on many servers around. So I don't know.
And I got a DM too, even from Hina Lover. He was saying he's a great theory crafter for the monk community. And he was saying, he's like, yeah, man, we are 3 nights a week. I think it's nearly impossible to do 2.
Right.
And that was pretty similar to the emails you were getting there, Zug?
Yeah. So, we were getting similar things, similar stories from everybody. And I think the biggest thing is the recruiting part, right? So in order to even do a casual, hardcore Mythic type of run, you have to always be recruiting. And I think that's kind of the major shift that we're seeing is that, a lot of the teams that were 10-man heroic teams back in Siege, back in the day, those guys are having to recruit a heck of a lot more, and it's a lot more burden outside of game time,
right?
To be able to fill those positions. And for those guys that aren't used to it, man, it's just a drag. So
I agree. And I think too, and I feel it's kind of a little bit of a misstep. I think that because the fights are so much about personal responsibility, you never really get to relax when you're raiding.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't get that, because there's that thing for raiders. You go in progression and you're trying hard and you get it down. And then at some point, it's like, chill, baby. We're just raiding and having fun and kicking back.
Right.
But you can't do that here, because if you still you step on a bomb, then you're going to wipe the raid. If the tank don't move the whole raid, you're going to get hit by a train. If you don't do the slashes, they're going to, on gruel, it's going to, wipe everybody. So that's the thing, is that because there's so much responsibility, and if you make one mistake, you can wipe the whole raid. It makes you tense the entire time, and it gets exhausting.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that if I love the difficulty of Mythic. I really do.
Mhm.
I'm just hoping that one thing that maybe Blizzard may learn from this is maybe they went a little too much personal responsibility. I think that's my opinion.
Well, and I think that there's a difference between personal responsibility and one guy wiping the raid. I think that there's,
Right. Well, true.
I mean,
true.
you know, you can have every fight we've ever seen has had at least some kind of personal responsibility or responsibility toward the group, but having one person die and wipe the entire, place. I mean, that's just kind of hard.
And it is hard also for them because now it's like a flashback to grade school.
Right.
Like you wipe the raid. So now somehow your pants have dropped and you're in front of everyone and everyone is pointing and laughing at you and mad at you and you're standing there butt naked. Like no one likes that.
That's like a really, really bad dream that I had once.
That's right. It's like that recurring nightmare we have where we're naked in front of all of our classmates.
Right.
That's what Mythic raiding is. But it's that's just one thing. When you are the cause for everybody else to wipe, it's frustrating not only for yourself because you feel bad and you're embarrassed, but also for everybody else too. So I don't know. Like there was a Kyvax posted about what was some of your favorite fights, and I said Mimiron. I said the thing I loved about Mimiron Phase 3 was it was challenging. You had to make sure the head and the body and the legs were all going down at the same time. But if somebody made a mistake, it just delayed the fight. You didn't wipe the entire raid.
Right.
You know what I mean? It would just take longer. So you could still conquer it. It would just take longer and be harder, but you didn't wipe the raid. So,
Well, and I guess we'll see what Hellfire Citadel has to offer as far as that stuff goes. And I do hope that they make some changes. And I do hope that especially the casual hardcore group gets some answers as far as what can we do, because I was looking at how long it took for us to clear heroic mode, right? In both High Mall and in Blackrock, and it took us 6 sessions to down all the heroic content in High Mall, and it took us I think 10 sessions to finally kill Blackhand. And if you're doing that, even on once a week, that's 10 weeks. And then you still have like 3 months to sit around and farm content because you can't get into Mythic because you don't have enough people or whatever the case may be. I mean, if you're always struggling with recruiting and not being able to get that full 20, what does that look like? And so then that means that there's a lot of farming, a lot of downtime. And then what do? Go play Hearthstone?
That's why they're introducing time walking. I don't know if this is leaked, but next expansion, all the old raids.
It won't be all the old raids.
Yep.
No,
all of them.
No, they didn't say anything about it. It's only dungeons. Come on. They're only doing the weekend events. Don't give people the wrong information, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been that. It's always been that, you clear it on whatever difficulty you can, and then you've got 6 months or however long of either farming it over and over again or trying to do the next difficulty, unless you've cleared Mythic.
Right.
It's just harder to get into Mythic now than it was normal to Heroic before.
Well, there's a serious line now. There seems to be a serious line between Mythic and Heroic difficulties. So,
I just think it takes a whole shift, like a whole way of thinking, like a whole paradigm shift between what we had before and what we have now. And it's going to be slow to get there, to get everyone to realize that, like, Mythic is much harder. It's more enjoyable, but it's a lot more hard. Or it's a lot harder.
It's harder,
right?
It is,
than before.
It is the harderest.
It is the most harderest. Yes.
Right.
But I don't think it's bad. I think it's just going to take a while for us to like have this shift. In way of thinking. And it is painful, but I think it's good. I think we have skill level for everyone at this point, whether it's LFR, Flex, Heroic.
I don't think so. I think you're wrong there. I don't think that we have the difficulty level for the casual hardcore. I don't think that we have that. I think that we have casual mode, we have hardcore mode, and this line is saying you're either one or the other. To me, anyway. That's what it's saying. It's you can't really try Mythic if you don't have the player base to draw from to be able to do it. And if you can't get kills, you're not going to get players. You're not going to get qualified players to go in there with you. You're going to get pugs, which are great sometimes, but in this case, you want super high quality players, and you can't get them if you're not killing bosses already. So it seems like there's like this big line in the sand, and I don't know. Colt, what do you think about that? Is that?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting thing too, because also even if you are hardcore, you find yourself after weeks and weeks of wiping only at 3 out of 10 Mythic. You know what I mean? Or 4, and you're like, well, we're barely making any progress here, and teams are getting so frustrated and so angry. And also, I think that personal responsibility that one person can wipe a raid. Look, I don't care if you're the greatest raider in the world. Some of these world-class people, you will make one mistake, you know what I mean, and wipe the whole raid.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's an interesting point, because that casual hardcore. So what is that casual hardcore? Is it just downing the heroic content, but not stepping into Mythic?
Well,
because...
I think in expansions past, what you saw is teams that were down normals and then go into heroics and probably kill. I mean, like what we were doing was we would probably down half the bosses before the next expansion would come out. You know what I mean? And so
in heroic.
And now we're doing the same thing with heroic going into Mythic, but the problem is that Mythic line is so defined.
So hardcore.
That we're not being able to, that we're struggling to get into it. So,
you know, it could be a thing like, and we kind of talked about this briefly on the last show, was, you know, back in the day, like in Burning Crusade or something, when I would look at like a raider, he had this amazing gear, and I was like, oh man, that guy, like I could never do that. Like he's got to dedicate tons of time and tons of work to do raiding, and one day I could maybe do that. You know what I mean? So in a way, that's like the mythic raider. Like, oh man, that guy's mythic. Look at his gear. It animates. It looks cool. It would take like, I had to dedicate so much time and hardcore stuff. And that was good because that was something that I would work for, right? But as the years went on from Burning Crusade, they wanted everybody to be able to raid and to experience this content, which is great. So not only like a few percent was being able to see these encounters, everybody got to see it. Well, the problem is that we all got used to seeing all this raid content and all of us raiding, and we loved it.
Yeah.
So now here we go. Here's a new mode. It's called Mythic. Well, we're used to conquering everything and seeing all the raids. Let's do Mythic, and then we get our butts kicked.
Yeah.
So I think what Darius is also saying is that maybe, and like I said last time, it's like steering a cruise ship here. Maybe we're trying to get back to that old school, like, oh, Mythic is like only for like the super hardcore, you know? And that appears to be the mentality, but that's going to take the player base a long time to get used to. Oh, yeah. And to get that in their minds. And they're going to go kicking and screaming because they've been used to see all the content, do all the fights without much difficulty. And suddenly they're hitting a major wall and don't know why.
But at least we can get all of our loot out of garrisons now. So
that's right.
That's the important thing.
yes. And we've got a shipyard coming. So
joke, but I have a mage that has never stepped out. I think I mentioned this on the show. Has never stepped outside my garrison and is now 650 eye level.
Wow.
I've never left my garrison.
That's
like,
right. Well, that
doesn't seem right.
Even for me, I'm gearing up my mage, and I'm gonna, I started to do the LFR stuff, and I was starting to read guides because I've been doing melee and now I got to do ranged. And I got to admit, I was getting exhausted because I was like, well, okay, I got to stand over here. And then, but if I move too early, I could wipe the whole ranged group. Like even on that like one guy, like if I don't step out, I'll wipe the whole raid. And I'm like, and I hadn't tried it yet, but I'm like, that's just such a hassle. And I found myself like, do I really want to go through this? I don't want to go through this again. It's like, it was an interesting thing. When AI defeated a mythic boss, there were no cheers. It was relief. It was like, oh, thank God it's over.
Really?
Like, oh, it's over. Like, fine. There wasn't no like nerd screams and like, yeah, we did it. It was like, oh, fine.
Well, you wipe on a boss for like 150 times, and I'm sure that everybody would have kind of the same reaction of, I know these mechanics like the back of my hand, seriously, and I've run it for hours and hours now. Right. Let's just,
I know.
Let's just move on to something new.
It's a strange thing.
It is. It's a weird thing, and we're all trying to get used to it. And I know that there's a large community out there that are kind of finding themselves in a similar position. Again, no answers here. We're just talking about it. Hopefully Blizzard will have some answers, and we'll talk about how they might be able to answer that coming up. But Coltrane, what's been going on with you lately, buddy?
Well, yes. Well, Coltrane's got some news. Nervousness. Convert to Raid will be celebrating its 4-year anniversary. 4-year anniversary.
Right.
At the end of June, which is amazing, by the way. Like 4 years.
Yeah.
Like that's actually insane. That's a long time for a WoW podcast to be going and keep going. And
right.
you know, like
Any
I said,
podcast.
this was show any podcast. Yeah. But this was show 182.
Yeah.
Like that's unbelievable. That's incredible. So on the the 4-year anniversary show of Convert to Raid will be my last show on Convert to Raid.
That's
actually,
right. That's right.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
and I just want to say we talked about this a couple of months ago. So I mean, it's we've been getting used to that little date coming along, and we're like going, oh, that's so sad. But and I know that a lot of people in the chat room right now are freaking the heck out.
There it is.
I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of cheers and a lot of yay.
Yeah, I don't know why we don't have the big applause.
Guys.
Oh yeah, right. Here we go. There we go. Awesome.
All right.
But yeah, it's been 4 years. It's been awesome, and it's been amazing having you on board for sure. And I know that our fans, especially those in the chat room, are saying no.
Well, and it's a thing of. I'm sorry, Darius. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's great that you're moving on to President of the Universe. You know,
Yes.
we all knew this day would come.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
someone out there saw your fortune cookies and realized, you know, that's what the universe
That's what
needs.
the universe needs.
Right. I think they were like, get this guy off the air immediately. I think more what it was.
Right.
For me, basically, it's like we said, it's been 4 years, and I'm really just looking to change things up. You know, life goes by pretty fast. It moves, and the things that kind of slow down time is change. You know, when you kind of get in the same thing, and it's great and it's fantastic, and it kind of keeps going, but for me, I'm just looking just to shake things up, just to change things.
Yep.
I have no plans currently to join another show, to do my own show. I just am honestly looking to just change things up and just kind of take a break and all that kind of stuff. So,
and you've been changing like a lot of things in your life. I mean, you're now kind of like, you know, you're working out of your house and you're doing all this other stuff. I mean, you're moving, man.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing where I'm finally starting to feel kind of in control a little bit more of my life now, which is awesome. But it's a thing where Convert to Raid, I mean, 4 years, that's a long time. And it's been such it's a huge part of me. And it's been an incredible journey, you know, throughout. And this is a decision that I've been thinking about for a long time, and it's really hard for me to do.
Yep.
And the fans, the people, everything is incredible. And I'm, you know, this is just something I just, you know, you get to that point where it's like, you know what, it's time to change things up and see what else is out there. And you know, so that's all it is. That's strictly what it is. Love Pat, love Darius, everything's great. Nothing happened. There wasn't some like major cataclysmic event or anything like that. It was just something where, you know, you get to that point when you're doing something and you're like, you know what, it's time to, let's change it up. Let's try something different. So,
And go ahead. No, you.
I was going to say, no, I have not been hired by Blizzard. If that was someone in the chat room. No.
That's what always happens, right?
Yeah, no, I did not get a job at Blizzard.
Bullet Catcher in the forums or in the chat room says, if Darius starts laughing at the cookies, will you stay?
right. On one condition.
That's not going to happen. So good luck with that.
It's really that's a tall order there.
Yes, but this is a very hard, very, very, very hard decision for me to make.
Yep.
And I love you guys. I love you, Pat and Darius, and all the viewers and chat room and everything. You guys have been a part of my life for a long time now, and I really appreciate everything you guys have done for me and been there for me. And So yeah, it's a tough decision to make, but it's something that I need to do.
Right. So. Right. And we're seeing all sorts of reactions in the chat room now. And as far as the CTR show goes, we will continue on. The show must go on, right?
Woo!
And we're planning on bringing in more guests, and more things will happen, and we'll change it up because we have to. Coltrane is a big part of a strong dynamic to figure out how to work without. So it's going to be an interesting challenge for us to make sure that we are giving you as much information and entertainment and all that kind of stuff for you guys as we always have.
The current plan is to not replace Colt either, because that would be way too easy. So
it's way too easy, right?
Exactly.
Right.
We're gonna try to do something else.
Yeah,
let's see where it goes.
Yeah,
it's good. It could be a great opportunity, and change is good.
Yeah, it is. It's a great opportunity to try something new for us and see if it works out, see how you guys like it, and we encourage your feedback to see what you would like in a new version of Convert to Raid, and what that means for you, what you'd like to see, what more of, what you want to hear about. So please let us know. You can always email us and get us on Twitter and all that kind of fun stuff too. So there we have it. We do have we do have you for a few more weeks. Right?
Absolutely.
Unfortunately.
I mean,
so sorry to say.
Right. Exactly. So let's just go into this show like we always do by going into the Raiden news.
Calling all raiders from around World of Warcraft land. This is Raiding News.
All right, it's time to check out what's happening with the news for raiders around World of Warcraft. And first up, I want to talk about next week. Because next week, there's going to be something kind of cool happening, and I want to let you guys know about it. And that is that Ian Hazzikostas, lead game designer, Watcher, as he's known, he's going to be doing a little Q&A session on Saturday, June 6th at 2 p.m. Pacific time. And Lore will be asking the questions, and Ian will be answering them. And yeah, so you'll be able to actually submit your questions to Lore and get those answered, hopefully.
And good luck. That's going to be
yeah.
I don't want to be in that chat room. Let me tell you, that is.
Do you think it's going to be a little aggressive? Maybe.
I think so. I think there might be
aggressive.
Yeah, maybe some all caps typing. There might be a lot of that going on.
Yeah,
that's going to be a heated discussion that day.
Yeah.
Woo. You mean from Lore? Lore's going to be yelling at Ian?
No, I don't think it's going to be from Lore. I don't think.
Well, according to the thing in the forums, it was we're going to be sharing more information about what was it? About what they've learned so far in Warlords of Draenor, as well as talk more about what's coming up for 6.2. Patch 6.2, by the way, should be downloading in the background right now for you. So it's coming soon, right? Probably the 9th. Yeah, that's what people are saying.
September, October-ish.
Yeah.
So it's right around the corner, right?
It's like, well, but people are saying like June 9th or the next week, maybe. Something like that. So we'll see. I don't know. What do you think? Are they going to ask the hard questions on this one, fellas? Do you think that you think that they're going to ask about? Well, obviously they're going to ask about no flying, right?
Oh yeah, they're going to be going crazy.
We'll talk about it in just a second, guys.
Yeah, no, don't worry. I know that the chat room's chomping at the bit.
They were before the show even started.
That's right. Well, somebody said, "Don't say the F word," meaning flying. Right. So don't, whatever you do.
Right.
But oh man, I think that they're going to go crazy on them. I think they're going to be asking about, the sub number loss, the no flying. I think there's going to be some very pointed and hardcore, harsh questions from Watcher. And also, I think that Watcher needs to be pretty straight up, about everything. And he tends to be, which is good. But even it says in the description, as well as lessons we've learned throughout Warlords of Draenor's development. So that's going to be garrisons. People are going to be talking about that. Why do I feel like I'm alone? I never leave my garrison. I have my garrison chores.
Right.
The no flying thing, Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think
want him
people are going to go crazy.
I want him to talk about, because it seems like we talk about this every week. What we talked about earlier, the rating situation. You know, the casual, hardcore. Where do they fit? All that kind of stuff. And Blizzard hasn't really addressed that. You know, they haven't answered that question. And I would love for him to, if he can't answer, like, you know, if he can't directly answer, at least answer like if they plan to do anything about it at all, or if this is their goal. You know, if he can't say, well, this is what we intended to happen, or like this is what we'd like, but I would like to know, you know, what's the future, because they haven't said anything about it, and we're all left to speculate, you know, us talking heads. So
right, and it is kind of a big question for me. I know that much. I mean,
people are upset, including us.
Yeah, it's not a big question for everybody, but it is a big question for me because that's how I play. I know I'm not going to be ever a top tier mythic raider or whatever, but I'd like to at least try on my own schedule. So, and it's a little difficult right now. That's all. So we'll see exactly what happens with this Q&A, and we'll report back next week. We'll be just a day after, so we'll give it to you almost immediately. Almost.
Yes, almost immediately. But it's going to be like even, you know, I'm seeing in the chat room too, they're like, after the backstab or the backlight, like there's going to be a lot of like, you know, pointed words. It's going to be a show. Right. I mean, grab your popcorn. It's going to be a show.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
I don't know. I don't like horror films.
Right.
I don't know.
Exactly.
But so that's next week. This week, or actually last week, Ian was in another interview, this time with Polygon, and he was talking about something.
Nothing came out of this.
A couple of somethings in this one that were interesting for many World of Warcrafters out there. And the first one is that he said, quote, "We're not going to be reintroducing the ability to fly in Draenor, and that's kind of where we're at going forward," unquote.
What? What?
And the world screamed.
That's outrageous. I know.
The forums exploded, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh. I felt a great disturbance, as if millions have cried out and then were suddenly silenced. It was crazy.
Yeah. They had like four forum posts full of various responses to that.
Yeah.
In this case, it wasn't silence. They just got louder and louder and louder and angrier.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
And we're seeing it in the chat room right now too.
Yeah, people. Wait, what? Yeah. So let's talk a little flying. I'm excited. Let's get the gloves on and ding ding to quote Carl Weathers.
And by the way, the article mentions that Hazakostas confirms that this direction includes future expansions as well.
What? What?
So it's not just no flying in Draenor; it's no flying moving forward.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Now we're talking no flying zone.
That's right. You done poked the hornet's nest, Hazakostas.
Way to go, Ian.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Mm-hmm. So another thing that he says is that they're, working on cleaning up the flight points to make it, so you can get to where we want to go and all that kind of fun stuff. But in the end, they felt like it felt more dangerous with no flight, and that they would be able to see the world and all that kind of fun stuff, and see that content that those developers work so hard to create. That tree over there, that rock over there, that big mob that's trying to kill you right there, all that stuff. So I don't know, fellas. What do you think about no flying? We've always kind of on this show anyway had no flying's just fine for me, but now what do you think?
Well,
Colt, how about you?
My opinion, actually, believe it or not, has kind of changed. From
to
level
what?
To what? Right. Basically, I think that a big misstep in the no flying thing, believe it or not, has to do with quest givers. Quest givers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've recently started tanking, right? Leveled up my old tank. And here's the thing. When you place a quest giver on top of a mountain And you can't go straight up the mountain. You have to go left and then right. And then the path goes around the back, then around this way. That's when I miss flying. Because if I had flying, I could just go right to the top of the mountain. Boom, done. But when you put a quest giver there, that to me is different than like, oh, there's adventure in that cave. If I had flying, I could just go there. That's no fun. I want to go for that adventure. That I get. But if you're going to have no flying, then put the quest givers on the ground where it's very easy to access, right? This is one point of many about why I think flying should be in the game now. Because it was just such an inconvenience. That's when I thought, oh, I miss flying. I got to go around. I got to go left, right. So quest givers, basic stuff, that needs to be like easy to get to. You know what I mean? That's like a big thing. Also, and this is just a aesthetic thing real quick. I kind of miss it. And there's some mounts that are coming out. And I saw
it just came out.
Right. And I saw even this mythic Archimon mount, right? So when you defeat Archimon, the new big boss in Hellfire on Mythic, when you defeat him, you get a mount. And they showed a video of the mount on MMO Champion. And it was flying.
Right.
And it looked so freeing and like I'm free as you like fly around. And that flying animation, it looks so good. And I saw that and I was like, man, I actually do miss flying. Like seeing it and like, oh, you know what I mean?
Right. Wasn't it flying through Outland though? I mean,
yes, it was.
It was flying through Outland. Shadow Moon Valley in Outland.
Right.
And
exactly.
I was like going, wait, that's Outland. Oh, that's
yes, right. I know, but it was flying and it looked so great. And my favorite mount in the game, believe it or not, is the engineer gyro, man.
The Sky Golem?
Sky Golem. In particular, because of the flying animation. When you fly with that thing, it kind of shoots off to the left and to the right and circles and banks. And I love that. And this is kind of a reskin, a little bit of that.
Yeah.
And it just looks so cool. So I have many points, but that's my first one about flying is if you want some feedback, I think put the quest givers on the ground and very easy to access. But anyway, go on.
Right. Well, I mean, Darius, how about you? What do you think about the no flying ever in Draenor?
I think it's fine. Not too problem with it.
I think it's fine. Just
it's fine.
Let me rate.
I haven't missed flying much in Warlords, and I thought I would. I thought I would miss it because I liked flying. I liked being able to get quickly from point A to point B, and I was worried about that. But I don't find myself missing it. I mean, the flight points are so much better than they've ever been. So it's easy to get from one area to another, and then it's a quick ground mount from one location to another, and you are dodging mobs, and you're doing all this stuff to make it seem active and alive. And I am seeing people, so I don't think it's going to be a bad thing. I think it's going to be fine. Yeah, it's like the rating thing. It's hard to go from one thing to another and not have all this controversy and anger and feelings of how it used to be. But I think this is the right direction. Draenor has felt great. So
yeah, it hasn't been horrible. I mean, even now going to the raid instance, you have to go through a little, bunch of mobs, a little meadow completely filled to the brim with mobs. But it's not like a big deal when you have as much gear as we have now, and you don't even have to stop. They don't really hurt you all that much. And so it's not too big of a deal. I think the only part where I find myself really wanting to fly is when I go to Stormwind, because I'm like, no, I want to go on the other side of the city, and I don't want to go through all the streets to do it. And so
I don't think they're taking flying out.
No.
So you'll still be able to fly in those areas, and those areas, a lot of them were designed for ground mounts, but work really well with flying because they scale really well for that, and the area is so big. And the older, the like Mop and the old Draenor and that kind of stuff, those are great with flying. But the new zones are going to be designed without flying in mind, and I think they're going to be designed in such a way that it's going to feel really good. So I don't see this being a big issue. I think this is great. I think this is a really good direction. And if you want to use your flying mount, there's still lots of places to go do it. I mean, you're still going to be flying around Stormwind. You're still going to be flying to do old raids, do all that other kind of stuff.
Northrend, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yep.
I'm bubbling up. I am bubbling up. And I will fully admit that I was in complete agreement with all of you all of you months ago. Those times have changed.
All right.
Because
Yes, so.
everything you're saying is right.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely agree with you on your first 100, on your first character.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're going through it on your second, your third, or your fourth, I just want to get from point A to B.
Yeah.
I want to get to that quest giver on the top of the mountain that I got to go through everything just to get to. And there's no mobs. It's just a maze.
That's a good point.
You know, I'm just saying that the next level to max level, no flying, great.
Right.
No problem. Totally get it. You experience the world. Everything's awesome. But when you're on your second alt, your third alt, your fourth alt, and Blizzard encourages alts, we have heirlooms.
Yeah.
They encourage us to level up new characters. But by the time you're on your third or fourth, like I was with my tank, I just want to get to point A. I just want to get to the quest giver and get this stuff done. You know?
Right.
So there's another argument that's sparking up, and one of them, Kleptic, said, flying isn't as important as the lack of content to fly to. Now, that's another kind of separate argument, you know what I mean? But I loved that idea that they had in Miss. You level up with no flying, then you get it, and then for your mounts, for your alts, for all that stuff, you get to do it. You get to, all that stuff. So, I mean, you're right. Some people say in the chat room, just dungeon crawl and that's what I did on my tank. By the way, leveling up as a tank is super fast.
Sure.
But it was much more relaxing tanking a 5-man dungeon. You know how stressful that can be at times. Mm-hmm. Than trying to get to the quest giver with no flying mount.
Right. And I'll grant you that, because there are some things, especially in these zones where we're seeing that, we want to hit maybe a certain area of content because we like that, because, especially in like Nagrand, it's a pretty big area and you just kind of want to get to the new stuff and you want to grab your flight point, because grabbing the flight point is very important anyway, and then do the little quest stuff and go without having to run around all over the place too. So
right.
I kind of understand that, but I think that once you level up, it seems a lot better. Like the flight points are fine. It's just getting to them all the time and then working with alts. I would say there's
nothing more frustrating when you see the question mark to turn in a quest and you're right next to him, but he's like 50 feet above you. And you're like, how do I get to you? I just want to turn in this quest. What do I got to do? I got to run all the way over here just to turn this in. I just want to turn in the quest. That's all I want to do. There's nothing more frustrating than that. Or on the same token, the place you need to go is right down there. And that's where you need to go. And human beings, we want the quickest, the shortest, and the fastest way to reach our destination. That's who we are as human beings. That's what we want. And when it's right there, I just want to do it right there. I don't want to have to go and take these giant detours and all that kind of craziness. So I understand the dangerous stuff, and I get it, the no flying. But once we hit max level, man, let's go back to how we had it in Miss. Let's let our alts not have to, come on. Let's do that.
Right.
That's my vote.
Right. Well, if you can't get out of your garrison, there's no point in it anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't have to worry
It's
about
totally fine.
Not leaving garrisons anyway.
Right. I mean, you've got a 650 mage, so you don't need to leave the garrison. It's fine.
That's right. But this is good. We have different opinions now. We used to be all unified, no flying.
Right.
But now, man, I see this stuff, and from leveling my fourth alt to 100, I'm just like, come on, man, this is outrageous.
Yeah. I think I've got, what do I have now? I know I have 3. No, I have 4 100s now. Yeah. And I'm starting to feel it for those alts. Especially considering like they have half the flight points.
Right.
So, I don't know. Another thing that was brought up in this Polygon interview with Ian Hazakostas was that there is more than after 6.2 for Warlords of Draenor. And for that, I will give him a... Woo! Yeah! Because we want this. We need this.
I can't wait for the Ruby Sanctum patch.
Yeah, the Ruby Sanctum patch will be really great. But he said we've got plenty of more story to be told after this. So
that's good.
Yeah, that's good. Plus, if we were to wait for the next expansion, it'd be like a year anyway. So we got to have something, right, guys?
Mm-hmm. In order for us to feel good about the no flying, they're actually going to give us something to fly to, in that they're going to send us back to the Caverns of Time. So
right. Yes, exactly. But no,
my
I mean,
prediction.
that's cool. That's cool. More story after this. More content is always a good thing. That's what we want. Everyone's itching for 6.2. And if we got more story coming, that's a great, great thing. So, we'll see what it is. I mean, we all assume it's a raid. You know what I mean?
Of course.
We all just assume it's raid, but maybe it's dungeons. Maybe it's some quests, or maybe,
maybe it's maybe there's another part to the legendary quest that we don't know about, or I don't know.
Maybe you do a quest line to unlock flying. Maybe that. What do you say, Liz?
No. No. Although, okay, so getting back to the flying thing for just a minute, because I think that's probably more powerful than, there's more content after 6.2. I believe that it was one of the community managers, and I'm not sure who, said that this is something that they are, this is their plan right now. Plans change. They are called developers. They're not called, this is the only rule ever. So, this is the development process. Yes. So this is why the forums have exploded, because everybody's trying to lay down their own opinion about why there should be flying.
Yes. Yeah. And big props to Muffinous.
Mm-hmm.
You following this guy on Twitter? This guy has the patience of a saint. This guy is unbelievable. He's like at the front lines.
What's going on?
Well, he's basically trying to get feedback.
Right.
And he's tweeting out like, tell me why you miss flying. Don't just say we've ruined the game and you're terrible, Blizz. Tell me why. Give me feedback. You know what I mean? And in the process of doing that, he's getting just destroyed by people. So this man has truly the patience I've never seen. It's unbelievable, this guy.
Oof.
Muffinous on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his reply is, thank you for the feedback. And it's replying to, you are the worst human being on the planet.
You are filth. You're worse than filth.
Exactly. So big shout out to Muffinous. He's taken to the chin there. He really is. He's doing a good job, though. But man,
mm-hmm. All right, more developing news here, and by developing news I mean from developers. We have the dev water cooler itemization in 6.2. So this is actually going to be kind of important for a lot of raiders out there. They are going to be changing the way that items are dropped in the raid, and especially when it comes to personal loot versus group loot. So Darius, what are the changes that are happening with personal loot for Hellfire?
So they're looking to make personal loot more consistent and more rewarding. Right now, you kill a boss in a raid with personal loot on, everyone has an individual chance to get a piece of gear. And you could, with 30 people in there, you could end up with 1 or 2 pieces of gear. And the only way you know that someone's gotten gear is a little tag in the chat window, which might be missed. So what they're doing now is they want to bring personal loot to be competitive with group loot, meaning you should get rewarded about the same amount of loot that you would get if you had Master Looter or Need and Greed. So if in Master Looter you would have gotten 5 pieces, you should get 5 pieces spread out amongst the raid via personal loot. And they're also going to pop up a window, kind of like an achievement thing or something like that, like you would see if loot was awarded, so that you know that someone in the raid got loot, know, kind of mocking you if you don't get loot.
Nice.
It totally just makes fun of you if you don't get any loot.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I think this is a good change, because there's a lot of times you go in there with a group with pugs or whatever, with just a random group of people, and you might not trust the master looter, or maybe they just don't want to do it, and you want to make sure that you're getting enough loot. And I think this is a really good way to do it, by making it competitive with group loot. I don't know why it wasn't like this from the start. Maybe there's a good reason for it, but I think this is a really good change.
Do you think it's just like a refinement to the way that personal loot works? And so now they're like going, well, yeah, okay, I get it. You don't want nobody to get loot at one point. I mean, there is a possibility that nobody would get loot with personal loot on a boss. And then there's a possibility that everybody would get loot off of a boss. So now I think they're evening it out, right?
Yeah, now they're just trying to make sure that... I bet if you look at the numbers over the long term,
mm-hmm.
group loot and personal loot probably matched up pretty similarly. But we're talking over multiple raid teams, multiple raids, things like that. On average, they probably both gave about 5 pieces for the same size group. But this is making it more comparative per boss, which I think is the better way to do it.
Yeah, and they also said that they're increasing the overall rate of reward for personal loot, giving players more items overall to offset the fact that personal loot rewards can't be distributed among group players. So that's another really good reason to do it. Give more loot out because you can't transfer that stuff. So that's pretty awesome. I don't know.
Yep.
And they're also doing stuff with eye level too, right, Colt?
Yes, we are structuring. I can't get past it. Before we talk about it,
oh yeah,
I am going to put on these sunglasses. And if you're asking me my opinion on loot, well, it's all about the loot. About the loot. You get it done. Yes, sir. It's all about the loot. About the loot. Oh yeah. It's all about the loot. About the loot. You get it done. Yes, sir. It's all about the loot. About the loot. It's pull.
We'll give you one.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, it's right there.
Right. I know.
I got the shades handy. We're talking about loot. It's the best part of the whole game.
Right.
Is the loot.
Right.
It's loot. Okay, so item level revamp.
Yeah.
We are structuring Hellfire Citadel so that the item level of the loot awarded by bosses increases as players proceed deeper into the zone. What?
Which kind of makes sense, right? I mean, you don't want to beat up the end boss and go, well, this isn't my best in slot.
That's right. So in other words, the first few bosses are going to have item level blah, blah, blah. And then the next bosses are going to go up in item level blah, blah, blah. And then blah, blah, blah by the time we get to Archimon.
Wow, that's a pretty high item level.
That's blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
That's right. It's the old blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So that's, I don't know. I think that's kind of cool. So it answers exactly what you just said, Pat. And that is that when you defeat that final boss or those end bosses, you are getting the best loot compared to the first boss that you killed. You know what I mean? So that's another kind of, I think, a rewarding system, another reward thing. So.
And it kind of almost provides a little bit more of a challenge. So, I mean, because you're not getting, because you're getting increased loot as you go, does that make it more of a challenge if you move faster through the instance? Or does that decrease the difficulty as you move, if you move slower through the instance? So that's kind of, I just thought of that. I don't know.
I think this is kind of a reaction to how BlackRock, we went from Highmall to BlackRock Foundry, and like mythic gear was better than like the eye levels were similar. Like a heroic piece was the same, almost same as normal or whatever. Like you weren't replacing gear the way they thought you should, or the way you should have been when you were running through BlackRock. Like you were keeping a lot of Highmall pieces because they just weren't. The stats were maybe better on your mythic pieces from Highmall than they were the heroic pieces in BlackRock, and that felt a little weird. They did increase some of the eye levels on some of this stuff, but I think this is a better way to handle that. You know, make the stuff that's at the end have higher eye levels. The harder bosses reward harder or higher eye level loot, so you're not replacing it with something, you know, a normal piece or something like that. I think this is a cool way to do it, but I also think this means that the bosses at the end are going to be much more difficult because they're going to expect you to have maybe killed that boss prior a couple times and get that extra 5 or 10 eye levels in some of that gear.
Yeah,
which is really good.
It's kind of interesting to think about what that means for raiders as we move through and as we start going and farming content and all that kind of stuff. Another thing that they're doing as well is that they're going to, quote, shake things up when it comes to how secondary stats appear on raid loot in this patch, which I think is kind of interesting. There's going to be a wider range of high and low secondary stat values on items than you've seen in a long time. And while they don't go into details about this, it sounds interesting-ish. I guess we'll see exactly what happens, but
they're saying that this change should also make it easier for you to identify which items are good for you in a more interesting way than just equip the highest item level. So I mean that's the question, is like, if I'm a Fury Warrior And, I love me some crit. I'm assuming that Fury is still crit. And the higher item level item is haste. Well, it's Fury. I don't need haste. I need crit. Do I equip the higher item level because it's got more strength? Or do I stick with my, lower item level because it's got more crit? So you'd probably stick with the crit, I think. But I don't know. So maybe I'm interested to see what this says. I think they're going to have more variety. Like they said, a wider range of high and low secondary stat values on items than you've ever seen in a long time. So
it means that every secondary stat is going to have some number behind it.
Right.
They just throw you off completely. That has
That's
plus
interesting.
5 speed and plus 95 crit. I don't know.
Right. I don't know.
That's probably
I mean, maybe
wrong.
this is something that they might go into on the Saturday interview.
Right. Let's
When they're not taking shots and dodging flames and fire. They'll talk about this.
I feel sorry for Lore, by the way, because he's got and the interns working with him to figure out what questions are going to be had at that Q&A. It's going to be
and
nuts.
like Zarum and Bashiak are going to be in the chat room moderating, and it's just going to be
it's going to be
they
hell.
have some.
It's going to be hell. That's it.
They better have some spicy water ready, just to kind of ease the blow.
That's why they're holding it on Saturday. They'll be done at 3 p.m. and they'll go, you know what? We're going to call it an early day. What do you say we go out to the bar there, fellas?
Exactly. Hangover on Sunday, ready to work on Monday.
First round is on Blizzard.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Oh man.
Poor guys.
Right. I still, as far as this loot stuff goes, I still do have to say that if we're continuing to get loot from our garrisons, then why make all these silly changes? I mean, it seems silly at that point because then you're like, oh well, I can just get all my loot from my garrison, so I'm good, right?
Like if you get like an Archimond highest eye level item from your garrison mission,
right. Or like off of the auction house, the black market.
Right.
So do some off of that. Let's hope they don't do that for a while.
See,
I don't know.
It's gonna be interesting.
I don't know. Darius, any other thoughts about the loot stuff that's going on?
No, I think these are good changes. That's all. I mean, I don't know. I don't see how these can come back to bite them in the butt, but I'm sure something.
They'll find a way. All right. Well, then, in that case, that's kind of the news for the week. So let's head into Leading the Raid.
Leading the Raid.
When we can, we take a look at issues for raid leaders, and this week we were inspired by, believe it or not, Reddit.
What?
I know. It was the WoW Reddit, threads. But the thread said, "Raid leaders of WoW, what do you do to prepare for the next raid tier?" And I thought that this was kind of an interesting question, so I thought we'd take a look at these answers, and then I'll ask you guys what's going on. How do you do it? The first one is recruit wildly as people disappear going into summer. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
My officers get our comp set up, study the fights, and know every mechanic like the back of their hand. Okay, yeah. And then the next answer is check out guides and videos from PTR testing to get a general idea of what's going on. Check out the dungeon journal for specific mechanics that aren't clear in the guides, and hope for the best. Also, alcohol.
Yes. Yes.
So, what do you guys do as you look towards 6.2 into Hellfire Citadel? And Darius, why don't you go first? What do you look for as you're preparing for 6.2?
I think a lot of this has covered it already. So, like, take a look at the PTR, look at how people are killing this boss or where they're failing. Take a look at some of the notes they have, stuff like that. As an officer, it is definitely recruiting. It is, like we've said a million times on the show right now, it's really, really hard to do that because there's not a lot of people raiding right now. There's not a lot of mythic raiders to go around. Summer is coming, so less people play in the summer. So it's a lot of recruiting, a lot of reaching out to people proactively, a lot of looking over applicants, all these different things to try to just fill your roster beyond 20 people, have that 25, because you're going to lose some people to summer or to the attendance boss or something like that.
Right. And we have someone in the chat room said, look for whiskey sales.
Yeah.
Coming soon. Coltrane, how about you? What do you do to get ready for raiding?
Plenty of spicy water.
Yeah,
obviously.
Stock up on diapers.
That's right. Get that going. But I mean, you're right. This kind of does cover it. I mean, people sometimes they want to re-roll and try a different class, and you want to make sure that people are happy, your raiders are happy in what class they want to try. I actually recommend re-rolling too, by the way. I find it's a great way to keep things fresh and kind of new. If you're ranged, go melee. If you're melee, go ranged. If you're heals, try tanking. Tanking, go heals. Yep. You know, it keeps the game happening and hopping. But yeah, I mean, literally these three seem to be the three big ones to get ready for the next raid tier. I really can't argue with anything here. Just talk to your raiders, make sure you're covered, make sure your buffs are covered. One thing that tends to happen, but it's not hugely important, is, you know, how many people are leather wearers? You know, well, the whole team are nothing but druids and rogues and windwalkers. So, you know what I mean? Maybe try and have a spread out of all the loot. You know what I'm saying? So you get your cloth guys, you get your plate, you get your leather. That helps gear up the entire raid. But otherwise than that, everything seems to be pretty much covered.
Yeah. The other thing that the only other thing that I don't see here is class stuff. Make sure to check out class guides too. Make sure that you're up on what's happening with your class, whatever class and spec you choose, and just make sure you're up on the latest information from that, or jump into the PTR yourself and try it out, because they're still changing a bunch of stuff as we speak for that stuff. So it's always good to get in there and just try it out, get on a target dummy in the PTR and go. So, all right. I just thought I'd just do a little quick thing for raid leaders out there to try to get them to think about what's coming on June 9th or September 15th. I'm not sure which.
I think the big thing though for Hellfire is make sure your warlocks have not done the class quest for the green fire. I think that's priority one. Or if they've got it, tell them to turn it off heading into the new raid.
All righty. Well, let's check the old mailbag here.
We've got mail.
We do. And if you have a question about anything for us, about raiding, about whatever, just let us know. We'll try to answer it on the show. You can email us at converttoraid@gmail.com or call our raid line 612-787-RAID. The first one we have comes from the tweeter. And Coltrane, you want to help us out?
Sure. This is from Mac Naughty. He says at Convert to Raid, hey guys, love the show, especially the cookies. Yes!
No.
They are my love. They are my light. They are my everything.
No, he didn't say that. He didn't say it.
It's the greatest thing on the planet. That's not written here?
No.
It's in my show notes.
Scrawled in the show notes in your handwriting.
That's true. It is written in crayon that he did go on. You're right. I'm sorry. Okay, my question. Even with the new changes, do dungeons really matter anymore?
And I think what he's talking about is mythic dungeons. Right. So now let's talk a little bit about...
He did hashtag it Wrath of the Lich King, though.
Yeah, I don't know exactly why he did that. But so do dungeons really matter? Do mythic dungeons really matter? Mythic dungeons are coming out, and we're going to see, big increase in the item level of the loot that it drops. And I don't know. Darius, do you think that mythic dungeons are going to matter?
If they drop comparable loot or loot that you can't get anywhere else, then yes, they matter.
As your cat tears apart Draenor behind you.
Right.
It's amazing. It's amazing how fragile that world is.
It's California. Cali right there.
Oh man, I thought it was all going to come down on top of me.
Oh boy. So you think it will?
If it's relevant loot, then yes, it will always matter. There'll always be people that want to run dungeons too for alts, so that's going to matter. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be that stuff. When we're talking time walking, there's always going to be the nostalgia feel, so that's always going to matter. But if there's loot, as a famous train once said, it's all about the loot.
Yeah, I'm not going to play the song anymore.
That's right.
I'm not.
All right. Sad face.
I said I'd give you one in the show.
That's true. I can't get greedy and ask for
right, exactly. And somebody in the Cubine HFC says there is a daily to complete 4 Mythic 5-mans for an HFC loot chest, I believe, on the PTR. But things do change. So maybe there's something like that coming out as well. So that could be kind of cool. Coltrane, what do you think? Are Mythic Dungeons going to be worthwhile?
It's all about the loot. About the loot. Get it done. It's all about the loot. About the loot. Get it done. Yeah.
Sing his own song.
That is what is going to make this relevant is loot. And that is what makes the world go round. It's why we do anything in this game is about the loot. We can sit here and say it's about the content and the story, but it's really at the end of the day about the loot.
Well, and yeah, I would totally agree. If Mythic drops the loot that you want, for those guys that are rating Heroics right now as their main and they're totally geared up, it's probably not going to make a whole world of difference to you, but especially for alts or if you're rating normals maybe, or just doing some LFR, that could be really important as far as gearing up for Hellfire. So,
yes,
you know,
in fact, I heard a rumor actually, and maybe chat room or you guys can confirm that in the new zone, the Tanan jungle, that they drop like armor tokens similar to Timeless Isle.
Yeah.
Where you can get like 675 gear from these tokens.
Yeah, I know that it's supposed to be similar to Timeless Isle in a lot of ways, so
right.
You know,
so that's a great thing to gear up.
Yeah. They've taken all of their knowledge from Timeless Isle and put it onto Tanan. So that's
right.
Cool.
So when I hear that, now I'm going to do Tanan Jungle. Because, you know, I'm going to be able, on my tank, I'm going to be able to get that great loot.
Right.
So loot. That's what Mythic Dungeons, that is what will make them relevant. It's going to be great.
Indeed. And other rewards, whatever those might be. Those
650, they're saying. 650.
Oh, is it 650?
And you can upgrade them.
Oh, they're upgradable. See, that's important too.
Via Apexis crystals. All right.
They're trying to make the Apexis crystals work again. I don't know if that's going to work though, because it didn't work the first time. So I'm not sure if we needed to grab like 5,000 of them for the legendary quest, and then I think people just went, I'm done. I don't know. It seemed like a couple of weeks of Apexis crystal dailies, and that was about it. So I don't know. All right, our next question comes from Thanatos of Hyjal, where he plays Horde, and Misha, where he plays Alliance.
Ooh.
A little altaholic, that's what I would say. Now, he says, hi guys, I don't mind running around and actually getting to enjoy all of the design details that they put into the game at current content, but what I do have a problem with is Blizz saying that and then releasing new mounts that do fly, like Corrupted Dreadwing and Runesaber. I know that can be ground mounts as well, but for the amount of time you spend flying, leveling up is so brief, why even bother with making it so they can fly? That's his first question. I don't know. And Darius, weren't you saying that they changed the graphic on the mount?
Yeah, on the Runesaber, on the Blizzard store page, the main video graphic was of it flying in Shadow Moon Valley. Now, if you look, it's actually a ground mount, and the background picture is still it flying in Shadow Moon Valley for whatever reason, but the pictures on there are now of it flying in Pandaria somewhere. So they've actually changed all that as of a couple days ago to reflect that. And there's a warning too that says flying mounts currently aren't active in Draenor or something like that on the
currently
store page.
Currently won't be active ever.
You know that there was a meeting and someone was like, really, Jeff? Really? It's flying? This is a ground mount. You got it flying in Draenor? Come on, Jeff. Come on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let's go, Jeff.
Somebody made a mistake there over at Blizz.
Right. And he continues, Thanatos continues and says, like I said, I'm cool with no flying at current content, but what about once we've moved on to the next expansion? Couldn't they allow flying for the last expansion just to make leveling faster and actually get to enjoy prior said mounts for that content? Fellas, what do you think about that? As far as like previous expansions and stuff like that, do you think opening it up then makes sense? Or Coltrane, I know what your stance is already.
Oh, yeah.
Darius, how about you?
It might work for Draenor because it was designed with the intent that flying would likely be added. But going forward, if they're designing the content and the world to not have flying at all, I don't know if that's going to work. If they would have to spend all this time and resources to make sure that it was flyable and that it didn't look like Silvermoon looks right now. When you try to fly over that. So I kind of like this idea that they're going to design all the worlds just for ground mount. So you'll be able to navigate them on a ground mount without issues and not have to spend all this time worrying about flying.
That is an interesting point, though, about how developers build a world. And if it's not built with the intention for flying, then all the stuff at the tippy top just kind of goes away.
There's just a lot less to consider.
But wasn't that how Draenor was made? That's how Draenor was made, with no flying.
I think they had the intention of adding flying, or knew that they would likely add flying. I mean, you can tell that they put a lot of detail into that kind of stuff just by using like Aviana Skyfeather and stuff. There's almost no part that's left out. There's a few areas that it looks like they might have rushed through, but for the most part, there's a lot to do. If you could fly, there's a lot. There's a lot to see. It's not like some of the places in Kalimdor or something like that, where you fly over them now that they had added later on when they added old world flying.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, but like in the Grand, they've got that thing where you got to get the glider and you got to fly from one spot to the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's like that glider thing. So that's content that's strictly ground mount only. I just have a feeling that they designed all of Draenor with no flying in mind. I just think that, to go what I was saying earlier, I think a misstep is you need to keep that idea of convenience. You need to make quest givers hubs, places that you have to go to, need to be very easy to access on a ground mount. Don't put them at the tippy top of a mountain or in some cave, that you got to go all the way around to.
Yeah,
that's why I said, like, in the future expansions, they design the world to be like that, so you don't have to worry about trying to get to a place that maybe later on you can fly to, or it's easier to fly to later on or something like that. So that's why I think if they design it like that, and then they design it with the expectation that you can fly later on, then they've got to design stuff where you will get to it when you're flying, when you're leveling through. And
then they have to design the tippy top of mountains and rooftops and stuff like that. So.
All right.
It seems like a little thing, but I mean, it takes up some art time, so I don't know. It's kind of interesting thing. And Thanatos goes on in this email. I like how we're breaking it up here.
I love this.
And he says, and while I have no problems with being on the ground, how about at least a ground mount speed upgrade? Say 200% ground mount speed. Not a lot, but at least a little. Then players would get mobility and speed, but see all the new content like the designers want.
Boom.
Love the show. Keep it up. And so that's kind of an interesting thing as well. Do you think a 200% ground mount would help your particular situation, Coltrane?
Yes, I think that would be huge. I think that that's a great solve. It allows me to find the backwoods weird place to get to that quest giver that much faster, but also that's going to be just a lot more convenient. Being able to haul booty across that zone would be a great thing. So yeah, mount speed increase I think would be great. I think that would really help out.
All right.
What about you guys? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Well, you guys are fine with no flying. It doesn't bother you at all.
I don't care.
I think they should slow it down, like 20% ground mount speed. So we can see the content that they've created and really enjoy it.
Actually, I think they should just get rid of mounts completely.
Right.
And we should be left to just walk. We can't even run through the zones anymore. We just have to walk.
RP walk.
Right.
Brilliant. RP walk.
RP walk through all the zones, and the mobs move really, really fast.
There's a stamina bar. After you've taken 30 or 40 steps, you have to actually take a break because you're carrying all this gear in your bags.
Perfect.
It's gonna be like I don't know, DayZ. Let's make it like that.
I think that's fine.
You can lose all your stuff when you die. It's more hardcore than original WoW.
Awesome.
That'd be great. And with that, we killed the show.
Yeah.
So not that music. This music.
Oh.
There we go. All right, here we go. All right, so let's get the heck out of here. Before we do, let's check in with 5 stars. Darius.
We have Bargigio 10, lift willow, and molted boar.
Mottled boar.
Mottled boar, mottled, I don't know.
Molten boar. That sounds cooler. By the way, did you see the new boar mount that's coming out? The armored boar mount? Oof.
Yes.
I don't know if I really want to ride a pig around. I don't know.
Flying pigs?
The flying pigs.
Little like pink wings, little tiny pink wings.
Right. By the way, thanks guys for all of your comments and stuff on YouTube. Especially this last week, I went through and just kind of categorized them. I went, all right, these guys are, talking about what we're talking about last week, and it was interesting to see what you guys had to say. Any shout outs this week?
I got a shout out to the chat room, to everybody for being really cool and celebrating me leaving the show. I don't understand that, but thank you. No, but shout out to everybody. I really appreciate you guys being so cool. And to you, Pat and Darius, something we talked about a long time ago, and I really appreciate it. Love you guys very, very much.
Yeah.
And so it's not an easy decision. It's a hard decision. But big shout out to everybody. I really appreciate it.
Right. And I think the big thing to remember is that we should celebrate you, that you've been here for 4 years, or you're going to be here for 4 years, and remember all the great times that we've had on this show.
Oh, it's been a blast.
The time. It has been an absolute blast having you on the show, and we still have you for a few more weeks, so there's no goodbyes quite yet.
Good, you're good.
But we do have one shout out from Prodigium LB that says, "Can I have a shout out to our guild, Prodigium of Lightbringer EU, for sticking with it, getting black and heroic after 141 pulls?" And the answer to that is no, you can't have a shout out. Sorry.
Oh.
What? No. No, of course you can have a shout out. And guess what else you can get? You can get a big round of applause.
Yay!
There we go.
I have a shout out to, and I don't know how to pronounce this person's name, and I'm going to butcher it, but I think it's Jay Tandaway, maybe. And this person messaged me every week and lets me know that they are the president of the Darius fan club. So everyone
and
else
only member, which is incredible.
Sorry. Yes.
Excellent.
And thank you guys, as always, chat room and folks listening at home and everybody. We can't do the show without you. Thank you for taking the time to rate us on iTunes. Thanks for the feedback. Thanks for all the questions this week. And please feel free to join in on the conversation we're having, really at any time. And I'm going to get to that in just a second, but first I have to bail on the music.
Wait, you're just going to bail out of that?
Yeah.
Bail out?
Just going to bail out, and I'm going to play this one.
Ooh.
Yeah, a little ham and eggs.
Little ham and eggs coming at you.
That's right.
That's baby making music right there.
You can email us at convertraid@gmail.com. You can call us and leave comments and questions on our raid line, 612-787-RAID. That's 612-787-7243. You can follow us on Twitter at ConvertToRaid or individually, right, Coltrane?
That's right, Pat Crane. You can follow Pat Crane at Pat Crane. You can follow Coltrane at _Coltrane. And you can follow Darius at BoredMind.
Yes, and join the... Oh, wait, what?
Colts is now the _quitter.
Oh my gosh. Wow. It's going so well.
And you just had to ruin it. All right, you can join the Bazooba Guabo Nation by heading over to converttoraid.com, where we have show downloads, forums, tons of links for raiders. We have our guild stuff over there. We have our audios and our videos, and so much more. It's all over at converttoraid.com. Our live feed and video show is also over at gamebreaker.tv. Make sure to watch, like, comment, share, subscribe, YouTube. Over there.
All the buttons.
Yeah, all the buttons. We're also live streaming on alphageekradio.com for those guys that want to listen through their mobile device or Roku while we're doing the live show, and they also do some reruns as well. The audio show is available on Stitcher and iTunes and everywhere on the internet. So there. Convert to Raid is produced and distributed by Signals Media. Make sure to check out all of our friends at the Signals Media All-Star Network at signalsmedia.com. And that's going to be it for the show. I'm very much out of wind, so so there. We hope you guys had a good time. Guys, thank you, obviously. Chat room, thank you guys as well. And everybody out there, thank you for listening once again. And we'll see you on our next show, which will be next week following the Ian Hazakostas Q&A session on Saturday. But we'll be on Sunday at our regular time, 11 a.m. Central. For all the guys on Convert to Raid, bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.